Hi, Vita. Hi, Josh. Thank you for coming onto my podcast. My name is Chris Meyer. I'm a domestic violence slash custody slash divorce lawyer for the greater Houston area. I want to, thank you for being here. It's truly an honor. And the reason I do what I do is because I'm passionate about protecting victims. I don't represent abusers in family law cases. I don't need to, and honestly, I don't want to. I don't need their business.
Good for you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And also, a lot of my listeners know I'm a domestic violence lawyer, and the reason I decided to kind of go mainly into this area is because after I passed the bar exam, things started happening rapidly. That's when, about the time when COVID happened and everybody was quarantined. And that's when a lot of folks discovered they don't actually like their spouse. Unfortunately, the divorces and custody matters exploded. And unfortunately, there was also a lot of domestic violence. And the other thing was I always consider myself kind of high tech. So I was able to, everything was switching over to Zoom. Everything was going rapidly switching from paper to digital. And unfortunately, a lot of the great family law attorneys out there, I don't think they were able to keep up. So it kind of created a vacuum. And I just got so busy. It was crazy. So that's what I chose to do. Domestic violence, custody, divorce. If it's not those three things, I'm not going to touch it. And I've always been a big fan of the Fort Bend Women's Center, what you guys do, what your mission is, and I'm really happy I'm able to talk to you guys, and I just want to, if you could please introduce yourself, tell me, a little about yourself, what you do, why it's important. I'd also like to hear your philosophy. So go ahead, talk to me. What's going on? Go ahead.
Okay, well, I'll start. I'm Vita Goodell, and I'm the CEO of the Women's Center. And I've been here for 20 years, almost 21.
Oh, wow.
So it's been a while. And, I came to the Women's Center. It's kind of like you. It's a little bit of a chance encounter, so to speak. I was just sort of looking for a change and came to work for the Women's Center. And truly, Chris, did not think that I knew anyone in my life who had been affected by domestic violence. I didn't think I had any experience with it. And then what I've discovered since I've been working here is that, yes, I did. And probably all the listeners out there know somebody who has been affected by domestic violence. They just may not know that they know them because it's a hidden thing. A lot of people just don't talk about it. Fortunately, it's getting out into the light a little bit more, but it's still sort of a secret, and people don't come forward and let you know a lot of times. We get people who call us for help who have probably been in the shadows with it for a long time and have finally said, okay, this is enough. I'm not going to take this anymore. And they call our hotline, which is the way to get into our services. And, I'll say it right now, but hopefully you can get it out there also to people. It's 281-342-4357. And it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and there's someone there who can help.
And I'll share that. I'll share that down in the article. There's going to be an article associated with this podcast. So I'm going to, with the listeners, any contact information or web links, I'm going to put it right there. So anything that's being discussed will be also appear down in the article portion. So I'll share your information and
right. Yeah. And you'll put a link to our website, and we do have a chat feature on our website. You mentioned COVID. We were planning to do a chat feature on the website anyway, and then COVID hit, and we're like, ooh, we need to do that right now. So we sped that up. But, and one other interesting statistic during COVID, interesting and tragic, you mentioned that domestic violence went up during COVID, and that is true. But our hotline calls went down significantly during the lockdown, and we were very puzzled by that because we intuitively knew that domestic violence would go up. But what we decided it was, and I have no statistical data to prove this, but if you're stuck in the house with your abuser, you can't get on the phone and call for help.
Well, isolation is it's
a big thing.
Isolation falls underneath it's called the power and control wheel. It's on my website. But isolation is part of the power and control that an abuser wishes to have over the victim. So it would make sense that they're not able to and also if there's nowhere to go, then it's,
That's right. Yeah. Well, and we had to put people in hotels. We had to spread people out for a while, but we managed. I mean, the domestic violence shelters in the area all managed to still help people, but it was a very interesting time. And I know Josh can talk more to that. Josh is a licensed clinical social worker and is our director of program or chief programs officer. Josh, I'm going to shut up and let you talk.
Go ahead, Josh. Talk to us. What's going on?
Thanks, Vita. I appreciate you having us on. We're always happy to talk about the work that we do. As Vita said, my name is Josh Brown. I'm the chief programs officer at Fort Bend Women's Center. And I sort of like Vita kind of fell into this field. It was not my intention to get into the domestic violence and sexual assault field, but it just sort of happened. And I've been here this is my 8th year. Next month will be 8 years. We sort of fell into it from a mental health perspective. Was working previously doing some research and doing some clinical work with some mental health modalities, talk therapy, and something called neurofeedback. And Fort Bend Women's Center actually reached out and said we'd love to get a program here, a neurofeedback program here at Fort Bend Women's Center. And so it's a long story, took a long time to get funding, but we did, and we got it started. And about a year into it, I was supposed to just train everybody and then get out. And somehow, about a year into it, they convinced me to stay, or I convinced them to let me stay. I'm not sure which one that was.
Yeah.
But I've been here since. And it's weird to say, but I enjoy being in this field. I think it takes a certain personality, just like any field, takes certain personality to fit. My personal philosophy is people need help. We need to help. And there are lots of people who are in powerless situations, through no fault of their own. And they need some help, some assistance, some protection. And that's why we do what we do.
Okay. And, okay, so I guess, kind of talked a little bit about your philosophy, why it's important, but, what would you, do you only serve Fort Bend County, or is it, surrounding areas, or how does that work?
We serve anybody who needs us.
Okay.
I think, I don't know the statistics up to date, Josh, you may. At one point we were 50% Fort Bend County and 50% Houston area. Mm-hmm. And I think we've skewed more toward Fort Bend County now, that our clients are more from Fort Bend County. But sometimes, Chris, we'll have someone from Houston who just can't find any safe place in Houston because maybe their abuser is somehow connected and knows where the Houston Women's Center's shelter is. And so that Women's Center will actually refer them to us because we'll be safer. We're further outside of their general area. And we sometimes do the same. As someone who might not be safe in Fort Bend County, we'll get them into a shelter in Houston. So it's just widespread. We've had people come to us from out of state that just needed help and maybe have family in the area or something. So
okay. Do you also work with other organizations? I know as a lawyer, I look at things through the legal lens, and I know there's this organization headquartered out of Austin called the Texas Advocacy Project. They help with they do a lot of protective orders and things like that. So, I mean, do you guys ever file anything with the court, or do you have other organizations work with ABDA or Texas Advocacy or other nonprofits, or how does I'm just kind of figure out what's the relationship?
Josh?
So we do, absolutely. I mean, we have to. We can only do so much. We actually do have a managing attorney on staff, who works with our clients. But as you well know, and as most people in the legal field well know, you can get overwhelmed very quickly with the need.
Absolutely.
And so having one attorney is great. But it doesn't fulfill all the need that's out there. So we work with Lone Star, Legal Aid, with Texas Advocacy Project, Tahoe Justice Center, all on the legal end. ABDA, we all have to sort of band together because we can't do it alone.
Of course, of course. And by the way, all these great organizations, if you desire to, you can also kind of share some of that information with me. I'll make it all widely available. But
Okay.
today we are highlighting the Fort Bend Women's Center. But okay, so okay, and can you tell me about any great things that y'all talk about you've done in the past, or any projects you have, or what's your vision for the future? Which direction are you guys going?
Vita, do you want to
Wow.
talk about vision?
Oh man, we have a lot. One of the things I do want to make a point though in this discussion before I go off on the vision, and that is that a lot of people have the perception, people who are out there who need help, who are domestic violence victims, we're not just a shelter. The other agencies in the area as well are not just shelters. So you're not required to come into the shelter in order to get our help. We're happy to help you in whatever place you are. If you just want to know eventually you're going to leave and how to do it safely, we can help you with that. If you are in your car running away at the moment, we can help with that too. You know, it's everything in between. So I wanted to be sure that people heard that it's not, there are no real requirements, and of course everything's free.
Okay.
So that's important for people to know. But we have, you know, Josh mentioned neurofeedback. One of the things that we really do try to do is look at, we don't want to chase every shiny thing out there and do all new things, but when there's something that has some real merit that we've heard about that could help our clients, that's what we go after. And neurofeedback has been an amazing therapeutic tool that we've had. It basically helps people, Josh can go into more detail, but it really helps a lot of the ladies who have PTSD and anxiety issues to get past those. And it's a relatively short-term therapy, and it lasts after the therapy is done. So it's a very good thing that we started doing many years ago. Well, when Josh came 8 years ago. We also are very heavily into housing assistance space. You know, we bring people into the shelter, they find a safe place, but then what? Then where do they go? They can't live in the shelter forever.
Yeah.
And a lot of them cannot afford to pay for an apartment on their own. So we have had rental assistance through HUD, through government assistance, for over 20 years. We've had it since before I was here. And it basically pays people's rent for up to 2 years while they're getting on their feet. And we help them throughout that period of time. We help them with job training or with resume writing or whatever they might need in order to be able to become self-sufficient. So we do that. We also have a separate program that's a longer-term housing program for people who have more severe, really debilitating mental health issues, usually because of the trauma that they suffered.
Okay.
And so we have some funding that we're able to pay their rent for a longer period of time because it takes them longer to get on their feet. And we actually even have some of those that are owned by another nonprofit that's affiliated with us out in Richmond, where we have people able to live there. And it's a wonderful environment. We're able to have wraparound services right there. They can go see their counselor. They can do all the things that they need to do. And we're finding that to be quite helpful. So our future plans are, unfortunately, we have need for a larger shelter. I wish that we did not. I always tell people we're one of the few agencies that would like to put ourselves out of business. We wish that no one needed us, but we're going to have to increase the size of our shelter. So that's in our future, to build a new shelter. We're always looking at new ways to simply, the goal is always the same: safety first, self-sufficiency second, so that they never have to go back to their abuser. And that's
that's my big complaint as a domestic violence lawyer is I help a victim. I've got great evidence. We have photographs, testimony, harassing voicemails. I mean, it goes on, the list goes on and on and on. Medical notes, medical records. I mean, it goes like super great evidence. Helps me prove my case in court, right? So I help the victim, but then they go back to their abuser, and that is my big complaint. And it's extremely frustrating for me when someone is seriously assaulted, and then sometimes they choose to recant, and because they want to protect the abuser, even though I have great great evidence that the abuser did something horrible. So, and I think there was some of the reasons that the victims go back to the abuser, and I think you mentioned it was your shelter wasn't big enough. I think it's a larger issue is infrastructure. Do we have a domestic violence infrastructure, or a robust domestic violence infrastructure here in the area to help these people so they don't have to go back to the abuser? And you said it yourself, you wish you had a larger facility. So is infrastructure an issue here?
Well, we do sometimes not have room in our shelter for someone who calls us. Often that's okay because they'll be all right until we do have room. We try to refer to other shelters. We do have money. One of the advantages that happened during COVID was we got some funding for hotel rooms that we can use in some cases. Right now we reserve those for people who have been, that law enforcement has been involved with, and law enforcement has deemed that they're in danger. So we save our hotel room money for those. But we're able to serve who we need, but we just know we could do it a lot better if we had a larger facility. So that's in the works for 3 or 4 years down the line here. As far as having the infrastructure, I could let Josh speak to that more. You know, we have a lot, but we do have, there's always more need. Absolutely. Josh?
Yeah, I mean, the thing to keep in mind is Fort Bend County is growing at a rapid rate. And so as more population comes here, there is more of the really great things, but there's also more of the bad things. And so we, because of that exponential growth, we have had to sort of grow to keep up. And so when we talk about infrastructure, I think part of infrastructure growth is just simply the fact that there's such an influx of population coming into the county, and not just the county, but in this area and in Texas at large. And the thing to remember about reasons why people return to the abuser, they're varied. A lot of the reasons why people return to the abuser, you mentioned isolation earlier, Chris, and that's a really key point, is that if an abuser will exert power and control, it's a coercive pattern of power and control over somebody else. And they do so through all sorts of means, including isolation, which means isolating them from their support system, their family, their friends, employment, finances, and keeping them in the dark about things, so that if they even wanted to leave, where would they go? Who would they seek help from? Where would they make money? How would they afford rent? And that's if you have no kids. Then what do you do with the kids? How do you uproot them from their school, and where do you take them? And then once you get them out and take them, what do you do? How do you survive? If you have no access to money, you've got work.
The word I use for that is circumstantial complexity. It's extremely complex. It's very circumstantial, and unfortunately, there's not always one correct answer.
Sure, and so that drives people back. They get out, and then it drives people back into the relationship. There's also the cycle of violence, which is, the honeymoon phase is, I did this, but I'm so sorry, and it'll never happen again, and I'm going to take care of you, and please, and there's always something that attracted the partners together. So there even though there's abuse going on, there may still be some love there, and so it's take me back, and I won't happen again, and they'll shower you with gifts, shower you with praise, shower you with attention. And then, okay, so we'll come back, and then that process slowly, kind of like the frog in the pot, right? If you throw a frog in a boiling pot, it's going to jump out, but if you put it in a cold water and slowly boil, that's sort of that. And then all of a sudden we're back to where we were, and it's like, whoa, when did that happen? And so it's, as you mentioned, complexity, it is highly complex, and there are many misunderstandings about why people leave or don't leave. One of the other ways that abusers control is they very often, or could very often, say things like, if you leave, I'm going to kill myself, or I'm going to kill the kids. And so now you're in a situation where you feel guilty, or you want to protect your kids, or even if you leave, I'm going to kill the dog. For a lot of people, pets are part of the family. And so that becomes an extreme control harassment type of situation. And, so our philosophy here is we look at every situation is different, but we are not investigators. We are here to just support in whatever way we can.
Of course, of course. Now, you said I was on my website. I have under the article. You click on the articles. You scroll down. You see like my power and control wheel, and you've mentioned. It sounded like you've went around the entire power and control. Talked about coercion and threats, intimidation, like abusing the pets, isolation, and using children. It always seems to be about power and control. The abuser's desire to have power and control over the victim. Is that something you guys at the Women's Center think you could agree with, or is there something else that the abuser wants, or is it? I mean, what are the reasons behind it, you think?
We do follow that. We agree with that, and we use the power and control wheel in our trainings, and it's very much real. Josh agrees too.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, domestic violence is a coercive pattern of power and control from one person to another. I mean, that's what it boils down to. So absolutely.
Okay. So I think we identified what the abuser really wants. They, abuse the pets, threaten suicide, threaten to leave her, report her to welfare, make her drop charges, go back to the abuser, isolate them. Okay, so power and control. But that is what they're looking for is power. That's what they want they're seeking is power and control. But what patterns do you see? Like, are there any causes? Is it like mental health issues? Is it drugs, alcohol abuse? I mean, what patterns do you see? Because not everybody. I'm also a court-appointed CPS lawyer, and I've seen parents about to lose their kids to CPS, but they go through the services, they follow the recommendations of the department, like stop using drugs, for example, and they're able to get themselves back into a better place. So, can we agree that maybe drug abuse, alcohol abuse, other mental health issues aggravate their desire for power and control? And if we could address these causes, maybe their desire for power and control would be lessened. I mean, I'm just trying to find the causation. What is causing somebody to need power and control so badly? Like what are the ingredients for that would cause somebody to be an abuser?
Well, I think all of what you said all those are co-occurring issues. We see that as patterns in domestic violence relationships, the drug use. I mean, not that everybody who's in a domestic violence relationship has substance use or abuse, but you see that as a co-occurring issue. Mental health issues as well. Also, some of this is learned behavior.
Okay.
If you've research has shown that if you are and witness a domestic violence relationship or in that system, that doesn't mean you'll become an abuser. But
you think it's normal, right? You think you grew up in a household where parents are fighting, and you think it's normal. Is that so? Yeah. I guess that goes to the circumstantial complexity. Is if you don't know what a healthy family looks like, then maybe it's easier to fall into that trap.
That's right. It's much like with primary prevention in schools and teaching about healthy relationships and things like that. If you don't know what a healthy relationship looks like, then you are likely to fall into something that's not a healthy relationship.
One thing I notice as a domestic violence lawyer is I look at things through the power and control lens, and when I look at a set of facts, like I'm helping a lady get a protective order because her boyfriend abused her. physically abuse, assaulter in many different ways. I'm looking at it, and sometimes I feel like I categorize people into two groups. There's like people who are empathetic and people who are narcissists. Narcissists is they're not able to understand what somebody else is going through. It's their way or no other way. They have to have that power and control because it's so important to them. And then, but they don't have empathy. They're not able to put themselves in the shoes of the victim and understand that what they're doing is unacceptable. Is that something you guys might agree with? Like maybe narcissism and just a lack of empathy, just inability to see something from somebody else's perspective? Do we think, or I'm trying to?
I mean, that everything that you mentioned can certainly be present, and it's not always, of course, but there are some statistics that I can't quote where they came from. I can look at them later, but that children who are brought up in domestic violence situations are 70 times more likely to be arrested later in life. Maybe not for abuse, but for other things. And they're also, I think, they're a lot more likely to grow up to either be abused or abusers because, as you were saying a minute ago, that's what they've learned. It's what they've seen. I have a story of a lady that I met. I think it was my first year at the Women's Center. I was in the shelter, and I had met her at one point, and she had a little child with her son, about 18 months old. And I went in there a few days later, and she was in there. It was raining outside, so she was pushing her child in the stroller in the halls of the shelter. And she was so excited. She came up to me and she says, "Oh, I've got an apartment. I'm moving out. I'm so excited. I'm going to start my life. I just can't wait." And she was just very, very excited. And I said, "Oh, that's wonderful. Congratulations." And she said, "I was in my abusive relationship for 18 years with my abuser." And I said, "Wow, that is amazing." I just like you just did, Chris. I was like, "Wow." And so I asked her, I said, "So what made you leave finally?" And she said she had a son with the abuser early on in their marriage, and she had stayed with him because she wanted her son to have a father. And then when her son became 13, 14 years old, she started to notice him treating her like his father did, and just disrespecting her and just trying to exert power and control over her even though he was a teenager. And she said, then I got pregnant with this child, and I decided I didn't want this son to grow up with that father.
Wow.
And so she got that child out of the situation. And, he's probably 18 by now, so I'd love to know how he's doing.
Sounds like she's very mindful. It sounds like, empathetic. She's able to put herself in her son's shoes and like, okay, this is the direction the child's going. I don't want that. So she's
fixing this one.
Yeah, she's mindful about it. So she got out of that situation, but it sounds like her son was adopting the father's mindset where he's not capable of understanding what somebody else is going through, and it has to be his way, and he dictates everything, and slowly learning power and control, which is, I'm happy she kind of broke free of that cycle, and saved her, probably saved her kids.
The point is she learned from her own experience that raising a child in that environment is not the best thing for that child.
Okay. Yeah. I hope things went go well for her and continue to go well for her, and she's able to start a new life. Was there anything else you wanted to comment on that you feel is important that people should know about?
Yeah, I just always like to, whenever I get the opportunity, and thank you for this opportunity, Chris, to get the word out. I always want to let people know, anybody out there is help out there. And even if you're just sort of wondering if maybe you're in an abusive relationship, you can call our hotline and they'll just talk to you. No one's going to make you do anything. We can just kind of help you think things through. We can tell you how to stay safe. So please, if you think that you're being abused, if you are being abused and you need help, please call us and we will do our very best to help, advise, do whatever we need to do to help you get out of that situation.
Okay, I would like to point out it's almost October. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. A lot of purple ribbons. Are you guys doing anything special for October?
Yes, well, thank you for asking. Yes, we are. We're doing lots of things, of course, that are just in in honor of domestic violence awareness, but we do have a luncheon that we call our Healing and Hope Luncheon.
Okay.
It's on October 19th, and the guest speaker will be Sabrina Greenlee, who is the mother of, what's his name? DeAndre Hopkins. Thank you, Josh. DeAndre Hopkins, who used to be with the Texans. And she was actually blinded in a domestic violence incident and has just been an advocate against domestic violence since then, and is a very terrific speaker, has an organization to help domestic violence victims. So we feel like she's going to be a very dynamic speaker to listen to. It's a luncheon at the Sugarland Marriott, and all that information is on our website if anybody's interested.
Send me the link to the event, and I'll put that down in there.
Perfect.
And also, I'd love to share that information, get the word out.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah.
Okay. No, it's been really great talking to you guys. I really appreciate. Thank you so much for making time today. I really do appreciate it, and I felt this was appropriate because I practice in Fort Bend, Houston area, and we're also getting into Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I just want to thank you so much for making time today to come onto my podcast, to be here, to share your philosophy, and tell us why this is important, and what things the public needs to know.
Well, thank you, Chris. We appreciate being here, and we appreciate what you do.
Great. Thank you so much. And I'll go ahead, Josh. I will be happy to share anything you guys provide me. I'll just, like I said, there's going to be an article portion associated with this podcast, so any links, anything like that, just give it to me, and hope to support the Fort Bend Women's Center any way I can.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.